I want to talk briefly about why commercial air travel is so safe. It's many orders of magnitude safer than other forms of transportation, including driving, cycling, taking a train, taking a bus, and even walking. Flying is far and away safer than any of those things. U.S. air traffic control handles over 16 million flights per year. That's 45,000 flights per day. Between 2007 and 2021, only 3 of those over 200 million flights resulted in a fatal crash. Of the billions and billions of passengers and crew who flew during that time, only 52 died in a plane crash. So let's talk about why. What makes flying so safe? Why are plane crashes so rare and fatalities even more rare? And why are there rarely ever 2 plane crashes of the same nature? Because it is very, very, very rare that 2 planes ever crash in the same manner. The answer to all of these questions is that anytime there is an accident or a near accident, which is called an incident, the FAA and the NTSB do a very thorough investigation of what happened and why. They show up on scene and investigate every aspect, every possible cause or source of the incident or accident. They look at pilot error, mechanical, manufacturing, and maintenance issues, and the weather. They examine any remnants of hardware. They look at the software. They look at the black box recording and the cockpit voice recorder. They talk to the manufacturers, the airline administration, the mechanics, ATC, ground control, pilots, crew, even the passengers if it's merited. They talk to anyone who was involved in any way. They do simulations and recreations. They do this thorough analysis so they can figure out exactly what happened and what procedures and safeguards and checklist and process changes they can put in place in the future so that that type of accident never happens again. They make changes to equipment and maintenance and pilot and crew training. And they don't just put in one safeguard, they add in a dozen. And they've been doing this for like 100 years. And so cumulatively, by investigating every accident in commercial aviation history, they have put in so many safeguards and redundancies that it's almost impossible for a plane to crash now. Accident investigators look backward and do an analysis of what happened so they can look forward and say, how can we prevent this in the future? Often there are already so many safeguards in place that when a plane crashes now, it's not the result of one mistake or failure, but a series of mistakes and failures. And sometimes it's up to 10 or more things that all went wrong. And if any one of those things hadn't failed, the crash wouldn't have happened. So you might say, how does a plane ever crash if there have to be so many errors and violations? And that's just because there are so many flights. Again, there were only 3 fatal commercial plane crashes in over 200 million flights in a 15-year period in the US. Plane crashes are unfortunate. At best, they result in financial loss. At worst, they are tragic, causing pain and suffering in the event of any casualties. But they're also a source of learning and analysis. And when an accident happens, we don't just say, "Aw, that's sad," and keep doing things the same way. We make significant changes so that kind of accident doesn't ever happen again. And that's why very few people get hurt in a plane. And if you're looking to not get hurt in your life, you can do the same kind of analysis when something bad happens. You can look at what caused it, what factors contributed to it, and you can put in safeguards so that you can avoid that particular type of trauma in the future. Personal trauma, like a plane crash, is not 100% preventable, and it's not your fault if you miss something and something bad happens anyways. But it is possible to be both analytical and proactive in making changes to your life so that you can avoid pain and suffering in the future. Thanks for listening, and happy landings. I'll see you next time.